Razorback fans, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you want to hear positivity. I know you all yearn for something positive, but it was another day of rough news for the Razorbacks. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday, as we'll have some things to discuss about some NIL stuff that I thought was really interesting that was released by 24/7 Sports on collective estimations for teams in college football, Arkansas being one of them. We'll get into that and also talk about what Sam Pittman, what I think he'll say today as a press conference has been officially scheduled. We'll get into that. But I'm tired, guys. I'm tired. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. I'm just exhausted. And I'm not saying that as saying, take pity on me. I'm saying it in a way of this has got to stop at some point, right? Yesterday, Arkansas had more news out of the portal, and it wasn't good news. As first off, it was slower than the other day, I will say. But first off, you had Brad Spence, linebacker and edge guy for the Razorbacks, 6'2", 240 pounds, entered into the transfer portal. He had 55 tackles this past season. He had 5 sacks, appeared in 12 games, started in 5 of them, and he still has 2 years of eligibility left. He enters into the portal. That was one that I was hopeful that was not going to be one of the additions. And I'm not trying to say that he was a game breaker as in, now the Arkansas Razorbacks, after losing Brad Spence, it's night and day different. No, it's a good SEC caliber player and a good SEC linebacker that you lost out on. There was never a time this year where I'm like, get Spence out of the game. There's never a time where I said, get Spence in the game. He was good, solid, did his job. But now he's officially entered into the transfer portal. And then later in the afternoon, Addison Nichols, your center, the offensive lineman for the Razorbacks, made a statement saying that he is going to be entering into the transfer portal as well. So the reaction, I think, from Spence was people pretty upset. The reaction from Nichols, there were some that were upset, and then some that were saying, he wasn't that good anyway, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing I'll say about Addison Nichols. I think Addison Nichols was a decent offensive lineman and a decent center. Yes, he had snap issues. But you know what didn't happen towards the end of the year? You have snap issues. It improved. That's what happens. When you play and you develop and you get better, you fix the problem. Addison Nichols fixed the problem. And I feel like after the season came to an end, and people were talking about, and when I say people, fans, people were talking about, hey, who do we need to get into the transfer portal and what type of positions do we really need to hit hot and heavy? I don't recall anyone saying, we got to get a new center. Our center's got a problem. We got to get a new center. Nobody said that. So Addison Nichols was moving on. That's now 3 of your starting offensive linemen from this past season who have entered into the portal. Nichols, Kudus, and Braun. And Spence is another addition off the defense. And from my understanding, folks, it's still not over with. There's still maybe some more and will be some more additions. Doesn't mean they're going to be big ones or even starters, but there'll at least be players of note that are entering into the portal. I have tried my best, folks, to be someone who looks at the grand, big picture, the long term, the future of everything, and trying to ask myself, and because I'm weird like this, I guess it's part of it when you live home alone and you got your dog Rowdy to talk to. But I have conversations with myself, sometimes in my own head. And I think that's what's helped me kind of do a podcast solo, is just acting like I'm having a conversation with myself. But I kept trying to convince myself of what this team can be. Like, what's a best case scenario, a realistic best case scenario for Arkansas given the circumstances? And I am struggling, folks, to find any sort of thing, any sort of best case scenario that I can convince myself of that makes me feel good about the future of Razorback football. And I hate being that way. This isn't fun for me. Some of you may think, oh, negative stuff that drives content. It drives numbers and clicks and everything. It doesn't as much as you think, for one. And two, I would rather have my own psyche be in a better spot than having to talk about something negative. I don't want to talk about Razorback football being bad. I want them to be the best because I'm a Razorback fan. I want them to be great. I want them to succeed. I want, people can believe it or not, I want Sam Pittman to succeed. I want all the players on the team to succeed. I want them to. But I also can't blind myself to the realities that this program is facing right now. I can't do that. Maybe some other sunshine pumpers can. I can't. I hear people sometimes in the media, even here locally, talk about how it's just negative internet stuff and the small minority on Twitter and all that, as if to say that it's just, it's you. The sky is green. No, it's not. No, yeah, it is. You're crazy. No, this reality right now, folks. It's not positive. Okay? It's not anything that you should be made to feel guilty about or your fandom questioned or anything, because you see what type of situation the Razorback football program is in, and you are scared. You're concerned. That should not warrant any sort of reaction from anybody of note or anybody that matters. Any sort of reaction like that should not warrant you feeling guilty about it or feeling like you're a lesser fan or feeling like, you're just being over dramatic, anything like that. The common fan sees it. The common fan sees what this is, and it's not good. Things can change, as we all know. I have been wrong before, believe it or not. I've been wrong before. And if I'm ever wrong, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. There were years where I said that Arkansas was going to go 9-3, and they didn't. I was wrong. There were years that I felt like a particular position group was going to be better than what it ended up being, and I was wrong. If I'm wrong, I will admit it. But I'm not going to go above and beyond to protect something or to try to act like everything's hunky-dory. And then if you say you have some concerns, I blame you. That's not what this is about. What this is about is a program that is bleeding. It's bleeding like crazy. No one knows what's going on. The only thing that we know is what we see. Concrete, hard evidence. And what we see is that half of your contributors that you were hoping and wanting to count on for next season to return are gone. There have been more surprises that have hit the transfer portal than not. That's bad. And seeing the direction of some of the visits that they got for some of these players, I'm not hating on any kids. But I'd be hard-pressed to think, given the circumstances, that your roster is going to come anywhere even close to as good as what it was this past season. And that's not a good thing to say about a 6-6 team with a schedule that gets exponentially more difficult next season. But I wish I could do something about this to make everybody feel better about it. I wish I could. I can't, though. I don't feel good. The U of A and the people that are in charge at the U of A could do so much and could have done so much to help this situation, but they haven't. They chose not to. The lack of communication, the lack of care, the lack of trust, the lack of everything. I don't know what the next few weeks are going to hold. But Razorback fans, you don't deserve this. You don't. You don't deserve to deal with this time and time game. You don't deserve to hit play on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast and listen to my stupid self talk about how everything sucks. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve to have anybody tell you how to feel. And if you feel a certain way, you're made to feel guilty. You're made to feel stupid. You're made to feel hateful. You're made to feel wrong because you feel that way. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve what you've gone through as an athletic department over the past year and a half. You don't deserve that. But the problem is that nobody seems to give you the dignity, the respect to even acknowledge that there's a problem. You just keep getting fed crap. And then if there's ever any sort of explanation, if there's every sort of recognition of a problem, it's not on this side, it's you. This has been compiling for way too long and these players are leaving. And again, I'm sorry, but this is not good. You can't spin this into a positive. The only miracle that Arkansas could pull off to even gain the fan base, to gain fans back in trust and to feel good or excited about anything about this football program is if they went into the portal and they just wrecked shop. But folks, I have a hard time believing that's going to happen. You feel powerless. You feel disconnected. You feel disrespected. And these are all things that we all feel in life. But we'll always make those things worse and feel much worse is when nobody seems to care. Nobody cares that you feel that way. Just sit over there, shut up, and keep consuming and being a Razorback fan, because if you don't just toe the line, you're a bad fan. Don't ever settle for something like that, because the day you do is the day that you no longer are a Razorback fan. You're a Razorback fan because you love a lot of things, but you love succeeding the most, just like we all do. And when something that we know is capable of doing more, when that thing is not where it needs to be called out and addressed and fixed. That's all I'm saying. I want to talk some NIL, though. Some interesting estimations coming from 24/7 Sports on the collective for Arkansas. So let's talk about that on the other side of the break, so stay with us. All right, Razorback fans, I got to tell you about the Gametime app. Listen, we're all about going to different sporting events. After that Razorback basketball win the other night, maybe a lot of you are going to be traveling down to North Little Rock to go to the game against UCA there in Simmons Bank Arena. Well, you're going to need a ticket, right? Well, go and download the Gametime app, because with the Gametime app, you can go to any games. You can go to any concerts. You can go to any comedy shows, theater shows, anything like that. Anything that has a ticket and requires a ticket, Gametime's going to have you covered. You get an all-in pricing feature that you can toggle, because there's always these fees and whatnot. Well, if you toggle that feature, you get to see all the fees up front, so there's no extra cost or extra feeling where you're like, oh, hey, that's a great price, but then it doubles when you go through a couple steps. Turn that feature on, so that way you see your price up front. You can also check out your seat view, so you got to make sure wherever you're sitting, it looks great on paper as far as sections and rows, but you want to see what it looks like of the event. They have that too. They also have the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will provide you with 110% refund on the difference. So, on the difference between the ticket of the lowest price that you find. So that's a guarantee that they can make. So check it out today and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Okay, so I thought this was a pretty fascinating thing, and I want to make sure that this is clear, folks, before I really dive into it. This is coming from Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports. I really like Brad Crawford. He's been a good friend in the media, known him a long time, and he put together and compiled a list with amounts of NIL Collective funding per NCAA estimates. Okay? So just to be clear and just to make sure everyone understands, this is only for NIL Collective, not NIL Total, NIL Collectives. And this is the funding for it per NCAA estimations. So again, just want to make sure everyone understands. Well, without surprise, according to this list, Texas is number one at $22 million, $22.2 million. Ohio State's at 20.2, LSU at 20.1, Georgia at 18.3, A&M 17.2, Michigan at 16.3, Alabama at 15.9, Florida at 15.9, Clemson at 15.2. I don't see anything about that list that really stands out as far as crazy to me. I mean, you could have a couple of ones interchanged here and there. But it does make me laugh because, when you look at all those teams, all of them are good at something at least, except for Ohio State. Ohio State's decent at football. I mean, they're in the playoff, but they don't really. But it's like they're not good at really any other sports. At least none of the big revenue sharing ones or revenue generating ones. So a lot of SEC teams represented in there. So it was Ohio State and Michigan and then Clemson. That's pretty much it. But again, no surprise there. But then you go on to the rest of the list. Again, estimated. Oklahoma, 14.8 million. Penn State, 13.7 million. Indiana, 13.6 million. That's a lot. Michigan State, 13 million. Virginia, 12.7 million. So a few of those are a little bit surprising. I mean, I didn't think Virginia or Indiana would have a lot of NIL, even Michigan State. But then again, those are schools that I don't really pay attention to that much. So I'm going to have to trust the estimations. But after that, Virginia, Tennessee, 11.6 million. Auburn, 11.58 million. Arkansas, 11.54 million. Which is $300,000 more than the next team, which is Kentucky at 11.2. So according to these estimations in the collective, Arkansas has more money than Oregon, Florida State, Iowa, South Carolina, Louisville, Washington, etc., etc. So what does that mean, John? What does that mean? Does that mean that we have that type of money and it's where's it being spent and everything? Here's what it means, folks. What it means is that you have, as I've been saying from the jump, I've been saying this, and I don't like to do this, I'm going to do it. I've been saying from the jump for over 2 years now that Arkansas's NIL is fine. It needs to be better, as do all NILs need to be better, and you got to strive to be better. But Arkansas's lack of success on the field, on the court, whatever it may be, has had nothing to do with NIL. Nothing. You did not have a bad basketball season last year, folks, because you didn't have NIL. You have more now. But last year was not a team NIL driven wise that should have had a losing record, but you did. Last year's football team was not a team where the NIL came into play, and that's why they went 4-8. The NIL is not the reason why in football this year you went 6-6. It's not. Texas is the number one team listed on that. You were in a position to beat Texas. I mean, they had nearly double what you were having in NIL, according to this, at least in the collectives. So you're telling me that 10 points, I guess in this case $11 million more, is what made the difference? No. Folks, look at, since NIL really started becoming a thing, look at the rankings. Look at recruiting, especially. Is there any doubt that the past 2 to 3 years in college basketball, and Razorback basketball specifically, have you seen those rosters and been like, man, there ain't no good players on there. There ain't no talent on here. Nope. There was plenty of talent. Lots of talent. Some would even say some NBA talent. How did that, because you didn't have that really before, so how'd you get that now if you have bad NIL? Razorback baseball. Sure, recruiting's always been really good at Razorback baseball. Some of the best in the country. But over the past 2 to 3 years, have you looked at the Razorback baseball team and be like, man, we just don't have talent. Just don't have the dudes. That's the reason why LSU and all of them are just winning it all. We just don't have the talent. No, it wasn't. My point is, folks, when you see the lack of success that your program has or your team has or whatever, NIL may be a part of it sometimes. But right now with Razorback sports, and specifically Razorback football, the reason you're struggling and the reason you're not winning games has nothing to do with the lack of NIL. Would $3 million more make a difference? Would it give you one more win? I mean, maybe, but it's bigger than that. It's a bigger problem than that. And that's my whole point. This, folks, this is a lot more than just NIL. The NIL at Arkansas is fine. It's not perfect. Could use work, but it's fine. The way you spend it, who you spend it on, and the way that you distribute it, that's the problem. And that's why I still think Arkansas needs a GM. Maybe they'll hire one day. Maybe they'll hire me. Don't. I'd screw it up. But maybe they'll be coming here soon. All right. I want to talk about what we could or maybe should hear from Sam Pittman today in his press conference. Stay with us on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, get ready to tackle all of the NFL, college football, college basketball action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to live bet on all NFL games all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So we finally got a little bit of an idea from Sam Pittman. I've been sitting here trying to beg, or at least trying to figure out, when are we finally going to hear from Sam Pittman in a press conference? Well, we got an email late last night that today, Thursday, days are getting all mixed up. Thursday, December 12th, today, we're going to hear from Sam Pittman. Got an email release where it's going to be at 1:30 today. And they were going to discuss the Razorbacks signing class and the team's berth in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. The two things that nobody wants to hear about right now in Razorback fandom? The signing class and the Liberty Bowl. Nobody really cares about much about that. There's going to be, I think, some other questions that are going to get posed. I wish I could be one of those, but not really allowed to. Point is this. Sam Pittman, I'm not coming at him in a malicious way or screaming at him and be like, wanting to choke him out, be like, why are you sucking at that? Like, some people want us to do that in the media. Even if I had the ability to ask the questions, I wouldn't. That's just not, I don't do that. That's not how normal human behavior is. Even if you're mad at somebody, that's not how you do it. That's not how you handle it. However, these are a few things I'm hopeful that Sam Pittman will at least be asked about and also address. First off, why are you having the mass exodus of key players? Why is that happening? Why are you losing guys that were contributors, that were good players, that you felt like and everybody felt like it'd be nice to have them back on the team next year? Why? We'll see what he says. I think it'll probably be some canned answer, but I want to know. I just want to hear his reaction to it. So that's number one. Number two, in a kind of more of a joking, fun way, is like, I want to know, hey, what's this roster going to look like in this bowl game? How are you going to determine that? Is it just going to be through practices? Are you going to have enough bodies at this point? Just have a little fun with that, but I'm sure he'll be addressed that. And number three, and this is the most important thing for me. Sam Pittman had a chance to do this last year, and he screwed it up after the Missouri game, after that 4-8 year. This is what I want to hear from Sam Pittman. Why should any Razorback fan believe with confidence that this is going to be A-okay, that this next season is going to be better than this last season. What are the reasons you are going to give? Give them more so, the reasons as to why. I don't know what he's going to say. It may be, again, some canned answer, some coach speak. I don't know. But this has got to be, this particular press conference has to be the best performance that Sam Pittman has ever put on in a press conference. It has to be. I understand he just had surgery last week. I get it. And so I'm not talking about, he's got to go out there and just be perfect because of the way of his strength and his, stature. No, I'm talking about the answers. Pittman hasn't spoken to the media in a week and a half, and he knows what's going on. His people need to prep him. He needs to be ready to answer questions. He needs to be ready to give good, solid, concrete answers. And that's going to be one of them. You better give something, Sam. I can't help you with this. There may be some media people that try to spin it. I can't help you. This is your time in front of the entire fan base where everyone is just outside their mind and pissed and upset. This is your time to shine, Sam. This will be your opportunity, your first crack at it, to lower the temperature here in the state. So what are you going to do? I want you to show confidence in it. I want you to say, here's how it is, or here's why. Because we're going to hit the portal like crazy. We're going to get these types of players. We're going to have more NIL money to spend, and we're going to make sure that we get the right guys in place, and we're going to be awesome. Lie to me even if you have to. But show confidence. And give the Razorbacks, give all the fans some reason to believe. Because everything surrounding it and what's been going on has done the exact opposite. No belief. And I don't blame them. It's up to you, Sam. Get it done. Counting on you. But I have a feeling that next podcast tomorrow, we're just going to be pissed off people again. We'll see. Either way. Hey, appreciate everybody listening and watching into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you then.